Brooks?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's not just up to the central banks. It is a regulatory ecosystem in the first place, if you think about regulators, and that's true in every market. And my point earlier about seeing markets and jurisdictions that are moving collectively on that front with industry. I come back to, I think this point about, who, when you finally know that this thing's gone crazy because of certain people that ask you questions about it, I kind of come back to, if we continue as a collective community to go after use cases that matter and have massive impact globally, regionally, whatever the case is from here, I think to me that's kind of the true north for what we're trying to do. There are a lot of use cases that when you really think through them, you're like, wow, that doesn't, that's not a business. That's not a revenue model. That's not benefiting anybody. I can say pretty clearly, I think we all can, that moving value or moving payments cross-border in a more efficient manner is massive impact. And while we don't necessarily deal in the end last mile and the consumer who's receiving, as MasterCard and others do, we believe the pipes and the plumbing in this can be done in such a way that really makes that a much more impactful experience for this group. So I really think there is this self-regulation element and bringing good people into the business, into the industries. And that's where we go back to this initial question that was asked of the role of big, reputable, global financial institutions getting into this game and being a part of this, which is exactly what is happening here at DBS and other great banks around the world. And if you have that movement as well, this goes in the right direction.
It's warm so hot. So responsible actors, thoughtful regulation, smart investors, real end users that's got an end purpose. But I want to pick out the last point that Brooks said about traditional intermediaries, which is the repositories of trust, participating in blockchain networks, orchestrating them, starting them, joining them, whatever, right? So do you think that, Pradip, I mean, you're an investor in the fintechs and also in DBS. Let me ask this question, right? Do you think DBS is moving fast enough, or for the matter of fact, all banks are moving fast enough in this space?
I would say not fast enough, for the simple reason that there is firstly legacy to deal with in existing businesses. I mean, a vast majority of our businesses that we own, and I would say this for like 90% plus of our global businesses, there's actual businesses to run, including our own business, right? Like, it's not like we're just sitting there daydreaming of the future and trying to think of how we can capture that. I think that is firstly the reason why there's just a lot to be done. I mean, that would include MasterCard and others, right? Now, within that, what I would say is that there's a little bit also of a regulatory constraint, and I really hope the regulators will give a little more leeway to the banks, where historically you had conglomerates and therefore you had restrictions on banks and non-financial services activities. But today, everybody who's worth their salt in the Web 2.0 world is building a technology business and then building financial services on the back of it with a platform strategy, right? Like everybody and the grandmother has a platform strategy now, right? And I really think banks are handicapped, and it's partly because of legacy, partly because of regulations. I think, having said that, there is an opportunity for collective effort, where also this mindset of you cannot have single dealer platforms, and you don't need to look far, right? If you look at FX, you look at any number of use cases, single dealer platforms have rarely succeeded. You need multi-dealer platforms conceptually, and that is the real opportunity for banks. And if you look at the protocol layer, it's commoditized, by the way, putting aside who's making how much money on the tokens. The technology itself is increasingly commoditized. You could pretty much run any of these networks on any number of private instances of a blockchain. And it's really the value that Brooks and his team would bring, for example, on the network. MasterCard would bring with this massive network. You can never recreate a MasterCard or Visa. You just can never, ever. That was for a special time. It's like the British Raj, right? Like, just a different time and different things that happen.
The sun never sets.
The sun never sets, so to speak, right? Hopefully. So I think the banks are behind, but banks are moving now. And at least our view is that collective efforts will move much better and faster. Yeah.
I think